5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
If anybody's got any water, put it away, because there's so many gremlins going about today. That second video came in way too early. I have no idea what's going on. It all started so well, and then do you know what happened to send it all wrong? Ant was first in on time. Well, it's never going to be right after that, is it? Let's be honest. Right, this is City Trap, the Foxes Forum. Could relegation be good for Leicester City? It's a good question. I like to think so, because I came up with it. I think it could. Normal guys are going to be in tonight. Craig's a bit late. Ant's in. Kate's sort of doing her impersonation of Peter Crouch. But last night we did the 7th out of 8 of the Project Reset shows. The fans. Have the fans got to take any blame in any of this? I know that seems weird, but did the fans get Steve Cooper sacked? And are they right to protest in the way that they do? Check it out, LTID TV. Good evening, welcome along. That is what you are listening to, LTID TV. Thank you very much. Join in the conversation, get your comments in the chat, and if you're watching on catch up, please add your comments below. We always do appreciate them. And if you're listening via your favourite podcast platform, whatever that may be, thank you very much as well for lending us your ears. If you've not checked it out today, it wasn't supposed to be me this week, but I wrote an open letter to Top on the BBC. We have no idea what is going on. Tell us. Now, I have to say, and I accept that they do this, but this was probably my most heavily edited piece that I have ever written for the BBC. So you can find it on bbc.co.uk/LCFC. They actually, for the first time ever, wrote back to me and said, can't use all of that, Chris. Which was a bit upsetting and a bit disappointing, because I was asking Top or somebody from the board an open invitation to come on and talk to, whether it's this channel or any channel, and tell us what the hell is going on. And the BBC said, nah, ain't going to allow you to put that in. And they took that out and lots of other bits as well. And you know what? It was hardly worth writing in the end. But anyway, it's up there. Let me know what you think, and we will see. Craig's made it. He was on a promise at home, but he's finished and he's into the chat. This is the Foxes Forum, and could relegation be good for Leicester City? I'll explain all when we start the programme next. Gentlemen and ladies, good evening. You may need to move slightly to one side or the other to avoid... Kate, I'm not saying women are awkward, but she moves right behind the bloody thing, doesn't she?
Better.
No, I can still see you.
Craig sat above the picture like you used to do with Dave, with Daniel Amarty's pictures.
Did you know... Not a lot of people know this. Did you know there's actually an Amarty playing for Leicester at the moment?
Yes, I saw that. It's his son, isn't it? I think.
I've no idea. We're going to have to get Craig back on to give us all the Dave back on to give us all the details. Craig, you awkward bastard, move to the side.
What do you
Actually,
mean?
no, move back. That was better. No, I'm joking.
Can I just say, yeah, when I'm looking, I'm afraid that you can see full face of me. I do apologise.
Now, if you can just kind of move your seat to your left a little bit. Stay like that. Stay
There
like
we go.
that.
I'll just be the voice of that bloke. Hang on, let me get these right. Yeah, hang on.
Does anybody remember Where's Wally?
Yeah.
There you go, hang on. If I do this right, I could be his other hand. There you go.
Just why are you late? Have you stopped off at the pub, Craig?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's more chance of me going to the pub than being on a promise, that's for sure.
Well, I don't think we want to know that. Right, guys, we are all relegated. We'll see how long you can stay like that, shall we?
Oh, don't you challenge me, Chris.
We are relegated, and I'm asking the question: is relegation a blessing in disguise? Are we going to be able to do things as a relegated team that we can't do as a Premier League team? I don't know. I'll go to Ant first because he said, "I tell you what I'm going to do. Tell you what, let's try this." Yeah, that's better, isn't it?
Oh shit! Hang on.
Welcome along to Homes Under the Hammer. Thank God,
sorry, Craig's distracted me.
That's as much as I can accept because, ladies and gentlemen, from that point downwards, he's naked.
Your picture on your graphic, Chris, it couldn't actually be more true right now.
Probably. Well, God, no. Looks like he's got his mouth open waiting for something.
Stop. Should we just start again?
Yes. Yeah, this is all proving very, very difficult to swallow. And should we let's do this seriously. So, is relegation a blessing in disguise? And I'm going to start with this one because one of the things, if we do get relegated, that might happen is Van Nistelrooy will be shown the door.
You'd hope so, and I've got really mixed feelings on whether it will be a positive or not, because I thought last time we got relegated we were going to have a proper reset, drain the swamp, etc. And it's like, I almost feel like we're back where we were a couple of years ago. It's like, I think if it's done properly and it's like completely reset and we build around the youth and build that way, I think it could be. I just don't have the confidence in the board that that's what's going to happen.
Craig, Ruud van Nistelrooy is saying he's still waiting to hear from the club. I mean, how bad can it? I mean, come on, we're relegated now. I'm not sure if it's Wayne that keeps saying put the guy on gardening leave.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to ask what is the point. You know, what's the point of him hanging around? But also, what's the point of just shipping him out? You're paying someone. You know, you're going to get someone in. You're going to have to pay him a bit of money to do the job, even if it's for 4 or 5 games, even if it's a promotion of someone from the backroom team. I don't know. It just seems. I do think he's been heavily let down by his players. I don't think you can watch that game against Wolves and put all the blame on him. Yes, he picked that team, and some players should not have been picked, and other players should have been hooked. But for some of those players to not put in the effort, and I've said it in a couple of posts this week, Ndidi gave one of the worst performances in a blue shirt that I've seen for a long, long time in terms of not being asked at all. The number of times that I was watching it on TV, and Wolves would break away, the camera would track with the players, and I'm waiting for Ndidi to arrive in the picture, and he just never did. He just couldn't be asked. So I think he's been let down by some of those players as well, and they have to take their share of responsibility for some shocking performances. You can excuse anything, a misplaced pass, a missed tackle, but what you can't excuse is lack of effort.
No, I mean, Kate, we're going to come on to sort of players and player sales in a bit, but would you be happy to be thinking now that we are going to be going into next season, and apparently Ruud van Nistelrooy says he's looking at targets, but would you be happy knowing that he's going to have a transfer budget and he's going to be the man in charge of bringing us back up?
No, I don't. I don't trust that at all. In fact, Ruud can perhaps bang the drum that he was told he'd have transfer money to spend in January. I don't know whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent. But say, for example, that he was promised some money to spend on somebody if it was just fully justifiable. The first bit of pocket money he had to spend, he wasted it on Koulibaly, he hasn't even played. So you've been given £2.5 million, which isn't small change in terms of our position being so precarious, and you've not even played the guy. So I wouldn't trust him with a transfer window, that is for sure. And I don't my biggest problem with Ruud, you could argue about tactics till you're blue in the face, who's right, who's wrong, versus Cooper or versus Enzo or whatever. But the fundamental is that Ruud stopped us from scoring, and you're just never, ever, ever going to win a football match if you don't score. And it's took our soul a bit, really.
It has.
It's not all on Ruud like that. I agree with Craig. The performances we've seen throughout the season from the players have also... they've not been engaged at all in the task at hand, really.
I just realised, looking at the picture on that side, I don't know what Wout Faes is doing to Connor Cody, but he looks to be enjoying it. Sorry, that just distracted me there. I didn't realise that. And we're back to, I don't want to get into who's going to come in, who's going to go out as a manager. Rafinha's just signed an extended contract at Strasbourg, so that's one to be ticked off. I know Manny's in the chat, but Sean Dyche is obviously still available. I mean, when we go down, it can't be Ruud van Nistelrooy, can it? I mean, you can say the players let him down. You can say he hasn't had a transfer the right money to be given, etc., etc. But this is the guy who played the same way 13, 14 times in a row and lost every single bloody game.
No, it can't be Ruud. And I think also, you look at this season, and I completely agree with what was said. The players have let him down big time. But I also think that he's been incredibly naive and incredibly poor. But next season, let's say we start the season and we don't start particularly well, and he's our manager, the fans are going to be on his back straight away because of how this season's gone. Whereas if you've got a new man, I think there's a bit of a grace period, a bit of a period of actually it is something new. It's and they need that time. So I feel like him staying will be a hangover of this season. And it's we need to completely reset. We can't just have another hangover of previous season, previous failures.
I mean, last season we were accused of rushing it, Craig, and getting Cooper because we were waiting for Potter, who's doing so well at West Ham. They hate him as much as we hate Van Nistelrooy, it appears. But I'd sooner them take the time, because it's not just a case of getting a new manager in, it's a case of getting the whole new backroom staff in, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. They often come as a team, or they'll want their own people in. You would like to think there would be some continuity, and I think the fact that Andy King's sitting in there is probably a good thing. Ruud, it's weird because Ruud was starting to make me think, oh, okay, he's changed a little bit. He's looking forward. 2 decent performances, I guess. Brighton second half, then Liverpool. We gave them a good game. And then his team selection at the weekend and his substitutions just baffled me. So, yeah, my goodwill towards him has gone. But again, and we said this on the show with Rob, clubs, the club's recruitment team are constantly looking at players. The club itself should constantly be monitoring managers and should have a shortlist already, 1, 2, 3, can we get that person? How much is it going to cost to get them out of that club if they're in a club? If not, we move on to the next. and that should be with a view to continuing where we were with Maresca. We waited and waited for Potter. You know, he just waited too long, wouldn't give us an answer, so we had to move, and then we moved in the wrong direction. And I don't think they had, you know, they had enough people. Whether they really thought they were going to get Potter that time, I don't know. But you do think that they went for someone who was available, and rather than picking someone who would follow the way Maresca was playing. But surely now, the writing's been on the wall so long, they should have some targets lined up. And as you say, backroom teams and all of that kind of thing sorted out, and have a vision. You know, businesses work from year to year, and they have to have a vision of what they want to achieve next year. Football clubs are no different in that respect, and they should always be looking forward, because football can change so quickly. You know, a manager gets sacked from one, yours gets poached. You have to be ready for those scenarios. So I would hope that they've got a list and they're working through it.
Kate, I mean, you've got, like I said, the situation we were in last summer, where if reports are right, we were waiting on Potter and waiting. It was only the fact that we got impatient because the transfer window was opening and the season, pre-season was coming up and the players coming back for training. How important is it to have the new manager in place for that time? Or is it more important, if we have to wait a couple of weeks, to still get the right man?
You do want the right person. I think that's first and foremost, because Cooper had quite a lot of the transfer window last season, and a lot of people would argue that he wasted it with the pre-season friendlies and the teams that he was putting out for that. And then obviously the transfer window was completely poles apart from the types of players that were already in the squad. You felt that it was a complete about turn on what the philosophy we'd been trying to execute for a while under Enzo. So you do want the right man, but it's just that magical timing of making sure if you're sticking with Ruud, then you've got to be 100% behind him and give him what he needs to be in with a chance of getting into the top 6 next year and trying to push for the playoffs or automatic. But if you decide to change, which I think we should do, I mean, even if there's a financial implication of it, it's done us no favours this year trying to stay on the right side of PSR. It's done us no favours at all. So just do what Forest have done, blow the budget and deal with the consequences later, but just get your club on the right track from a footballing perspective.
Yes, no, totally. Wayne, if Daka leaves, who will see if there's any goals? RVN has shown he can't run a whelp stall, let alone manage LFC. Larry, that's a new one. I can't run a whelp stall. I've not heard that one before. Niall's in. Very good evening to Chris, Kate, and Craig. And you can say hi to Ant as well. You know, he's not going to. You're going to upset him now. He'll be off any minute to open. You know, to let his Tesco order arrive. Don't be upsetting him. He won't come back. To
be fair, Chris, it did say Ant. It didn't say and. It said Ant.
Did he?
Yeah.
I should have gone to Specsavers. There you go. Look, the way this show's going tonight, you're lucky I can even read. My concern is the hierarchy won't do anything until July the 1st, start of the new financial year, because of PSR. Do you think, Ant, that is, and Ant as well, that actually is the problem, is that we will have to wait? Like I said about gardening leave, you can put somebody on gardening leave so that they're not disrupting and making it, if it could be any worse than it is. Do you think we've got to wait until that day if we do sack him?
I'm not sure.
That's a good 4 or 5 weeks after the end of the season, isn't it?
It is, and I almost agree with. Well, I say almost. I completely agree with what Kate's saying. I think you almost need to look at Forest, and they've just gone for it, and then you take the consequences after. We sort of half went for it, and then sort of bottled it. Yeah, and then sort of got a little bit shy and bottled out of it, haven't we? So it's like, I think you just go for the route of going completely all out with it, to be honest. And I know it could become across as reckless, and obviously if it doesn't work, then you get yourself in real trouble. But at the same time, Top's continually having to bail us out, isn't he, because of poor financial financial management. So it's like I do think that almost go for it.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, Jan, carry on. Yeah,
No.
But we do have to bear in mind that by all accounts, this is the last year of PSR, and there would be something else to replace it. So it depends what that new thing is as to whether, if we're outside of PSR, if PSR stops, do they still have the power to sanction you under old rules that are no longer in place? Because there'll be a new set of rules. So it's almost like, do we just gamble and think, okay, PSR will be done by the end of next season. They can't do us under PSR.
But would they not say that, well, the seasons we're looking at, PSR was in effect?
It was in effect, but it doesn't exist anymore. You know,
I don't have the answer. I'm just saying.
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. We don't know what that thing is that's going to replace it, but it'd be interesting to know whether that will still carry over the PSR rules when PSR, as we know it, doesn't exist anymore.
Are we in danger, Kate? And this is the last one we'll talk about with Van Nistelrooy and managers, and then we'll move on. But are we in danger of becoming a Spurs? Remember that period when they appointed about 10 managers in a year? I'm exaggerating a little bit, but managers kept turning them down, and they ended up with Nuno. Bet he's laughing now. Are we in a bit of a danger of becoming that and a bit of a laughing stock?
I don't think we're in any risk of becoming a laughing stock as such. I think people like to laugh at Leicester because of our successes. They like to go, oh, haha, you've messed up now, almost like shame on you. That will teach you to win the league. I do feel there's a lot of that kind of bitterness about us still and a resentment about us. But we've had, 5 managers in 3 years, which is not what we're used to. I think you can discard one of those because it was Dean Smith. It was never going to be a long-term appointment. It was a 7-week project. And then Enzo wasn't our choice. So what the worry is that we're just going to become one of those clubs where there's just loads going on. There's just loads going on all of the time.
Is that your delivery arriving, Ant?
Doorbell. Can I come back in a minute? I don't know who it is.
Oh, is it your doorbell? Yes, of course you can. I thought it was Ant's Tesco man then. It wasn't. It's Kate's.
Hopefully she's ordered pizza for us all. That'd be nice. We're all going to simultaneously get the doorbell going.
Yes. Manny said their new PSR is likely to be the same system, but increase in allowable losses from 105 over 3 years to 130. Which is the case. If they do that, Ant, are they not admitting they got it wrong?
Potentially, but I think that since it started, it's like that's with inflation, isn't it? Like in the market. Yeah. But to be honest, at PSR, I never think it was. It's always been a glass ceiling, hasn't it? But that's a different conversation for a different day.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. The idea with these is that the same question will apply to everybody. Just let me know your thoughts on it. Now, I've put here, can we reset better, Ant, in the Championship than in the Premier League? If we just stayed up in the Premier League, finished 17th, we stayed up by goal difference or 1 point, we're then still fighting that battle to just try and stay up. Does going down allow us the freedom to reset more and maybe a period of time? She got a smile on her face. Don't know who it was that was at the door.
You don't want to know. Anyway, let's move on.
Just saying the next question, Kate. It's going to Ant first. But it's the same question to everybody. But I'm saying, can we reset better in the Championship? If we have stayed and managed 17th, there's then a case of, we need to try and spend more money and buy regular players in, etc., etc., etc. Where if we go down, we are going down to the Championship, it gives us just a little bit more leeway to sort of, get rid of the dead wood. And we're going to come on to all this sort of thing later. But would you agree with that, Ant? Can do a reset better when you've gone down?
Not particularly, because you look at teams like Forest, who just stayed up last season in 17th. I think there's a fair few teams that were in like that 17th, 16th sort of area who are now well up the table because they've invested well and recruited really well. And if you'd asked me this 2 years ago, I probably would have said yes. But it's, as I said earlier, we've seen the fact that we were supposedly going to reset in the Championship, but it just feels like we've just done a full circle and are back to where we were last time we got relegated without as many sellable assets.
Well, that then raises the question, Craig. Were we too successful last year that we didn't have to do a full reset?
I think most of the reset was getting the manager in, and when we talked about getting a manager in early with Maresca, we did that. We got him in very early. He had the window to decide who he wanted to buy and what players he thought were capable of working in that system that he wanted. I think it's always better to try and build and therefore stay in the Premier League because of the money. It allows you to do what you want to do. What I do think going down does is probably forces the hand to make some decisions that they may have tried to just let slide, and hope that they had a better season. I think now, with 2 relegations in 3 seasons, I think they realise that there has to be change. So I think it does kind of force their hand a little bit more that probably staying up wouldn't have done. But in an ideal world for me, you stay up and you build, as Ant said, Forest did it, just stayed up. You've seen 2 or 3 teams gradually improve season after season. Brentford, Brighton, Palace this year, just hanging around. The more money that comes in, you get slightly better players each season. And I think that's the thing. Can you hang in there for 2 or 3 seasons? So I think we would have been better off staying in. But I get the point, and it does force a few issues, I think.
Well, what are your thoughts, Kate?
I think there's an argument to say that you could do it out of the spotlight a little bit, because that seemed to be the plan that was being executed perfectly under Enzo. We were rebuilding. We've got a new philosophy. We seemed to be getting our house in order, and it was all able to be done outside of the spotlight to a certain degree. Now we've just got the added issue of we've got a manager that we don't want. That's problem number one. We've got a lot of players that have really, really disappointed and shown their hand this season at how poor they can be in terms of attitude and application. And we are seemingly being fed to the wolves of the EFL because of this potential points deduction and transfer embargo. So it's a bit of a different setting than what it was a couple of years ago, because we didn't have all that hanging over us particularly. So it's just hard to say how it's going to pan out. I quite like the idea that it's going to be done out of the spotlight, but with the relegation again, with two out of the last 3 seasons in the Championship, the ability to lose money is a smaller window, because you only get a reduced amount of losses that you're allowed in the Championship compared to the Premier League. So it feels like we're strangling ourselves a little bit, and it just makes the proposition really, really hard. But having said that, we're still a really good prospect for any new manager and any player wanting to come in. Like Bilal, for example, I know he's been one of our outstanding players this season, but I still don't think he's proven that he's good enough yet. He's only got 2 goals and 2 assists. He's just looked magical at times. I think a lot to do with the fact that the players around him have been piss poor. But that's not to say he won't be a star in the future. So if we can recruit a load of Bilal-like players that have that potential in the Championship, they could really light it up. So yeah, it's a big setback, but you've got to try and look for the positives, haven't you, really?
I mean, I am really looking forward to a Mavadidi, Bilal, Fatawu midfield going forward next season, and throwing Alves in there as well. I just think, like you say, it's out the spotlight for me. If we were to start next season with whoever we've got in charge, and maybe if we stayed up, we'd have to keep Rude. You don't know what his contract said. There may be a relegation get-out clause. But I just think if we stay up, and I accept what you're saying, Craig, the money financially on that side is better, then I just think if we're sort of around 16th, 17th again, the fans will just be going mad. But if we're sort of top half-ish in the Championship, it's not too bad. But I want to look now at the different things. Obviously, none of these things are guaranteed that will happen. But the things that we've been linked with, different things, I want to go through them one at a time and just say, will they actually, in a perverse way, actually improve the club and help the club? So we're going to start with this one, Ant. Management plans. And I put here, could mean the club is better run. when you look at the way that this club's been run over the last season, couple of seasons, you can't say it's anything to be proud of. Going from one-time club that everybody wanted to be like to maybe not quite as bad as that, but the laughing stock. We haven't been well run, and yes, I know we're not in any debt because Top keeps writing it off, but then we get those debts under Top. So if we've got a management plan, that could actually mean that we end up being a better run club.
Yeah, I suppose so. And
you sound almost surprised that you're having to agree with me.
Yeah, the thing is, it's the money that we're wasting is where it's gone wrong. Because when you look back when we were at our best, like some of the recruitment was unbelievable. And now it just feels like there's occasionally you get those gems still. You have Mads Hermansen, your Fatawoos, etc. But it just feels like they're becoming less and less frequent. And your likes of Jordan Ayew, Decordova Reed, Oliver Skip, they're becoming more and more whilst the wage bills are coming out of control. So, yeah, I think I see what you're saying. I think it could be a good thing.
Oh, sorry, I was expecting a but then. Let me move on to the wise old owl, as Scott has just called you. I don't think the club could be run any worse. Well, I suppose, yes, it could be run worse. You've got to look at the likes of Reading and Bury and Bolton in the recent past. But I just think, having been told, well, somebody's going to come in and look over you. When I was working, funny enough, for WH Smith, and I became manager of one of the branches, and it was actually the worst performing branch in the country. And every day, every week, so once a week, I had the area manager coming in, talking it through with me, going through and giving me that extra advice. And because it was a baptism of fire, because it was my first manager's job there. And it really made a difference. And I just think, like I say, they are going to impose on us a management plan. I can think it can only be good.
The notes I wrote were, what management plans? Have I missed something? Are you assuming that that's going to happen, or do you know something that I haven't?
No. I did say just before I went into this, I'm not saying that any of this is going to happen.
That's the biggest thing.
These are things.
Plan. Yeah.
Sorry?
Well, that's the big thing. It's a massive if.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if it happens, would it mean that our club was going to be better run?
Do you mean when, like, the EFL said they wanted us to submit a business plan?
Yeah, that sort of thing, yes.
Oh, yeah. You've got him off the hook there, Kate.
I've read it as management plan, and I have taken this off Tinternet. And it's on Tinternet, it's Wikipedia. But no, don't think that any of these are actually going to happen. Yeah. It's just...
if they bring in another, 5 Rudkins, then it probably won't be. It does depend on who it is. But I've said this. I said it on the programme with Rob. I've been saying it for weeks. I think they should get some outside help, some independent football people to come in and make some recommendations and help, offer some help. It was interesting with Rob on saying that basically that Susan Whelan had sort of moved sideways and was literally just concentrating on the business. So the football side is just being run by Top and John Rudkin. That you need more people than that, to be honest. And I think they now have the opportunity to get some advisors in, maybe people who have been directors of football, maybe people who have just been very, very successful in football, to come and have a look and make some recommendations. And as I said before, that helps Top potentially make some tough decisions. If Rudkin is his best mate, almost like a father figure who's been there since he's been in the country, he's known him, to have to tell him that, he's no longer required, that's tough. But if it's becoming as part of some recommendations from other people who are a lot more knowledgeable about football, then he can find him another position. He doesn't need to lose him. But I think it's important to have fresh blood on the pitch and off the pitch for us to do this reset properly. And what I would say and add to that is, I think we're now in a situation where Top has been living on Vishai's legacy. Everything that's happened so far has been what Vishai wanted, and Top has had to come in and is just carrying that on now with the people who were there. I think now Top should try and see this as an opportunity for him to build his own legacy with his own people, and be able to, for people to say, look what Top did, not just look, Top's made a mess of his dad's work.
Yeah, just very quick before I go on to Kate on this one, Craig, to come back to you on one point there. He said it's very hard for Top to sack John Rudkin.
Yeah.
But if you want to be a top businessman, the question I would say to you is, if the roles were reversed, would Vichai have a problem sacking John Rudkin?
No, he wouldn't. But he's a much older, more established and wiser businessman, who whereas Top has just had to learn on the job. You know, we talked about this, about whether Vichai had a longer term plan to pass over the reins to Top, and I'm sure he did, but it happened overnight, and they've just learnt on the job, and it needs something. It probably needs something like this, a real shock to the system that this has happened again, for him to realise that he needs to make changes to build his own legacy. But as I also said, there will be eyes from King Power looking at this as well, and maybe saying, you know, is Top the right man to be heading up the football division?
Kate, thank you for digging me out earlier. Yeah, like I say, I'm just going off what the EFL might hit us with. There's no saying that they will hit us with any of this. You know, Nick DeMarco might get involved, and we might find a huge loophole in there that we can crawl out of. But if they are put, whether it's a business plan or a management plan, and I know you're not that pedantic to pick me up on anything like that, but surely with the mess this club is in at the moment, surely that would help us and make us a better run club.
Well, it depends what the criteria is, because if it's just a very basic business plan, then it would be quite easy to cobble it together to say, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, this is what I'm going to do. It depends exactly what they want from it, because if they want some financial forecasting or whatever, that's quite difficult to predict in a championship, because you don't know what division you're going to be in the following year. And also, we submit our accounts every year. That's what PSR is kind of built around. They know the financial position of the club, because that's what they have to monitor every year through PSR or FFP. So if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because as I understand it, there was some amendments and clarity given to the PSR rules, and the document was released on the 11th of April. I haven't had a chance to read through it yet, but I know they've definitely refined and redefined that clause that says that when you drop a division and get relegated, the rules still apply to you. And that particular clause in the rules is now crystal clear, which it wasn't before. It was so woolly and ambiguous and not very protecting of the rules as they saw it. So if have the rules been cleared up enough and amended enough, if they were able to be, to really capture somebody like Leicester City, who keeps falling between two stools, I'm not sure if they have the reach to do so. So we'll have to play to the tune of the EFL, especially because the 3-year rolling cycle will have been in their league for 2 out of the last 3. So we will have to do something to abide by their rules. But I mean, what does a business plan look like in football these days? Like,
yeah.
God knows.
Well, we may well be finding out sooner rather than later. Right. Moving on to this one. Learned today that £9 million get out clause in Wilfred Ndid's contract. I actually had Rich, I don't know, I think most of you know Rich from the Manchester United fan, and he messaged me and said, 9 million, there's a lot of our fans have been saying we should go for him. Do you think he's worth it? And I'm saying he's not the Wilfred Ndidi that you wanted about 4 or 5 seasons ago. Look, this is where I tie this in with the management plans. We've got to clear the deadwood. In the past, we've held on to players that we probably shouldn't have, because we want 10 million and we're only offered 9. Now I'm thinking if there's a business plan in place and somebody comes in without face and says, we'll give you 2 million. Surely, do you not accept that and go, yes, we'll take that just to get him off the books?
I think there's going to be a lot of players you're just going to have to cut your losses with in the summer.
Yeah.
Particularly like some of the big earners. So Ndidi's one, but apparently though, and I don't know how true this is, Ndidi's going to count as 9 million of pure profit because he was actually signed as a free agent last summer instead of being a transfer because his contract expired. But
works. Yeah.
But Ndidi's obviously one. I think Samare, Daka. Like, there's so many like that I think you just have to cut your losses for. But at the same time, what worries me is, are they going to get the wages that they are on here elsewhere? Because if they're being told that they need to be moved on somewhere else and no one else is going to offer them the same wages, there will be players that will just be like, I will happily sit here, and even if you're not part of the plans, and just pick up a wage. So I do feel like we could be in a bit of a difficult spot.
Danny Ward.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, like I say, because as a club, and we've always, I'll stick with you for this one, and we've always, like I say, so I think we've thought these players are worth more than they actually are. But if we are selling Wilfred Ndidi for 9 million and we get an offer in for 3, and it's the only offer we're getting, a club is more likely to be willing to pay his wage levels because they're getting him for 3 million.
Yeah, I think it depends on what the wages of the players are. Because someone like Mads Hermansen, who's not on particularly high wages, I think puts you in a stronger position compared to someone like Ndidi, who's on, 70, 80 grand a week. So I think it depends on a player-by-player basis, I think.
Of course, yeah. Craig, do you think if there is a business stroke management plan in place, that they will make, I'm not going to let you forget that they will make us sell players, and will that be such a bad thing?
Yeah, I don't think anybody can make you sell players. I don't.
Well, they say you've got to raise the money. I mean, this is part. Yeah. This is what we don't know what the business plan is, but we know there's players there, as Ant said, who may not want to move on because they're on a cushy number here. But do we really want to see Wout Faes in the Championship next season?
He'll be fine in the Championship. I know he's the one you like to pick on, but he was fine.
All right, let me pick on Samari then.
Yeah, please do.
Let me pick on Daka. Do we want to see any of those players in the Championship?
What we don't want is to have a completely team full of kids. Famously, I did look this up earlier. The famous thing, you never win anything with kids. That team at Man U that had all the kids in also had Bruce and Schmeichel and Pallister and Irwin or whatever. It had a smattering of experience. So I think you have to balance it. So you can't just have a wholesale clear out and get rid of anybody. But there needs to be a definite clear out of people like Ndidi, Samare, people who just don't want to be here. And it's clear. And this is where I wish Van Nistelrooy was stronger. Was like, if you don't put the effort in, you ain't playing. I don't care who you are. I'll play the cleaning woman. If you're not going out there and
look, don't call her that. She's in the next box to you. How dare you?
But yeah, there's definitely, and we talked about this before about part of the conversation that Ruud. If Ruud thinks he's staying, his conversation should be, will you allow me to take a loss on some players that I don't want here? And that is going to be one of the big ones. And as you say, I think if we can get 9 million for Ndidi, I think that's a fantastic deal, to be honest. But it could be that it's 5 mil, and then that affords, that it's basically 5 million your first year's wages or whatever. That we have to do that. I don't think you allow yourself to just be taken advantage of. Someone coming in with silly money, just because you want to sell your house and you really desperately want to sell your house, you don't accept any offer that comes your way. And I don't think we'd be that stupid to do that. But definitely any offers for decent money who you don't really want, then you've got to be taken, I think.
Was it Luke Thomas, Kate, where there was £1 million short of what we were asking for, so he didn't go?
I think so, yeah. And there wasn't there a rumour around Casey at the same time as well?
Yeah. But I mean, you look at, it could have been Casey actually, but I agree we don't need to. We'll come on to the youngsters in a minute, but I know we don't want to just have a team full of youngsters. But in fairness, you're going to have possibly Cody at the back. Luke Thomas is no youngster these days. Fatawu, Mavididi. They're not youngsters now. They've been round a bit even before they came to us. So you have got that experience, just not the experience of Ayew, Dakova Reed.
What I don't see, Chris, what I don't see is a leader in that team, and that's the biggest thing that it needs. And you might say Cody is because he talks a lot. He doesn't lead by example on the pitch. The biggest thing that team needs next season is a leader, whatever position they are.
You can almost say they need somebody that's a bit like, if you follow American football, a bit like a centre-back.
So you ruined that by not saying quarterback, didn't you?
Say quarterback. It's
Quarterback. I have absolutely no interest in American football whatsoever, and I can never remember, but it is something that I'm going to have to, let me write that down so I remember. Quarterback.
Went down like a fart in a lift, that did, Chris, I'll be honest.
It did. It's wrong on so many levels. But we come back to UK. We have got experienced players, just the younger experienced players, if that makes sense. And we've got to let some of these players go, and if it means selling them for 6 million rather than 9, so be it.
Yeah, sometimes you've just got to cut your losses because it will free up cash for other purchases and wages. Really, the 9 million quid's quite an interesting amount for Wilf, because that just slightly more than covers 2 years' wages at 80 grand a week, and that's what he's got left on his contract. So that would be interesting. That's why they've picked that amount. Possibly they're not daft, are they, the people that make these contracts? So if we got that for Wilf, then I'd absolutely snap the hand off, because it might be quite contrary and it might be an unpopular opinion, but I think he's absolutely awful compared to the Wilf that we had 5 years ago, who was dynamite, and just what a replacement for Kante he was. We thought, we couldn't believe our luck, really. And the performances this year, and I know everyone's tired with the same brush, but from him, it just shows really that type of player, if you want to play ball, possession-based football, that type of player is outdated for me, really. And you can argue about interceptions and everything else, but a lot of his interceptions end up going to the opposition anyway. He just doesn't retain the ball very well. So I'd get rid of him in a heartbeat, to be honest. I think there's lots more out there with a lot more motivation and gumption to take on the championship. But it's like Chris said, it's Craig said, it's really hard to clear out the deadwood. Your hands are tied behind your back. There's nothing you can do, and just hope that the ones that you want to get rid of, someone comes in for. Like Fast won't necessarily go. I think he fancies himself to go, but if no one great comes in to beat the money he's on, he's not going to go, is he?
No, you are very much in the hands of people wanting these players. But if people are sniffing, like if you go into let's say go into Primark, and there's a sale rail, you'll go and you'll look, and the chances are you weren't going to necessarily buy that dress cape. You're thinking, oh, it's on sale now, or aren't even. But and it's the same with Faze. You might be thinking, well, nobody's going to buy Faze, are they? But you might be looking at that thinking, what, they want 5 million for him? No. And then you're looking at $1 million, and you think, oh, it might be worth it for $1 million.
Yeah.
And it's getting it off our books.
Willing to sell for the $1 million to cut your losses. You've still got to make sure Woot wants to go. He might not want to go. If he doesn't want to go, he's stuck, and that's exactly kind of how we found things with Yuri a bit, really, as well. If they don't want to move, player power is everything. And it's. But then
you have to. Do you not have to bite the bullet? Do you not have to bite the bullet and say, right, you're not in the squad. You're going to train with the under-21s because you've got no future here. So
I would do, but then you have to find that replacement then for Woot from within, because you haven't got the money that you would have got from the sale to spend in the market.
Well, talking about finding people from within, thank you very much. That was a brilliant lead-in there,
Kate. There for you, Christopher.
It was indeed. Thank you very much, Catherine. Let's go. Transfer embargo. If just to keep Craig happy, if we do get a transfer embargo, which of course isn't guaranteed, but it has been rumoured that the EFL, we had a transfer embargo before. The fact that it was outside of the transfer windows made it absolutely bloody pointless. But look, if there is a transfer embargo, and to now go back to Frank Lampard at Chelsea, they had a transfer embargo and he had to sort of pick the players he'd got or the youngsters. And that season, he actually got them qualified for the Champions League. following season, when he could actually buy players, they didn't do so well and he got sacked. So if you're looking at a transfer embargo in place where you say we can't go out and buy players, we can't replace anybody that we sell because that money's going off to balance the books, then good. Let's get those youth players in and let's give them a chance, because especially if Rude stays, they're never going to get a chance, are they?
To be honest, I think regardless if we've got a transfer embargo or not, we need to play and build around the youth. We've got a lot of...
I agree. But what I'm saying is, if you've got somebody like Rude in charge, he's not going to, is he? He just bullshits it.
Well, it's how many times have we heard that X, Y, and Z is going to be on the bench and it's not happened and they haven't got minutes. It's only been in the last couple of weeks. But potentially in the Championship, it might be slightly different. But again, I don't have faith in Rude with that, to be honest. But yeah, I think the club, we have to play with youth. You look at Ben Nelson, Will Alves, both doing very well out on loan. Your likes of Fatawu, who's not particularly old, Stolarczyk. I think you've got a core of a very good young team. Yeah. Even if we can't go and buy players, I still think there's a very good core there to build around for the next few years. So youth has to be the way that we go.
Craig, I was thinking about this the other night. I really need to get myself a life. And I was, having a think about the youth players. I'm thinking, if you had a back line that included possibly Souttar if he comes back, Ben Nelson, Akoli. Now that's not a bad. And I'm not sure whether two of them play on the same side or not. Then you've got Luke Thomas in there as well. You've got Koulibaly. It's not the worst for the Championship. It's not the worst defensive back line, is it?
Not at all. I personally think JJ will still be here, and he had a good season last season in the Championship. It all went wrong this year.
Wasn't he played on the left last season?
He played both sides, Chris. I think.
Did he?
But yes, he did play a lot more on the left.
Right.
Yeah. I know you see him as a wow.
You're just so pedantic.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for being right there.
Thank you. No, it's it doesn't get you anywhere being right. Anyway, but yeah, no, that is pretty strong, and I'm sure you can make a very strong, team through there. Maybe the midfield is a little bit, but by all accounts, Sammy Braybrook gave a great account of himself the other night, and I'd like to have seen him get some minutes this season. You've got Alves coming back. You're going to have Fatawu, Mavididi. There is a core there of young, but some experienced players as well. Souttar's been around a bit. He's played at a few different clubs. He's been around. So I think there are opportunities there, and the core is there. If you can then pick up the little nuggets that you need, those who want to play, even those who are dropping down from the Premier League because they want to play, not just that they want to pick up a wage packet. The fact is they could pick up a big wage packet staying in the Premier League and sitting on the bench. But if you've got someone who wants to play, then they're the right kind of people. And I would hope that blended in with our youth, the one thing they look for is character rather than ability for the people they bring in next season. That's what we've been lacking.
Yeah. Scott, I'll just say, shall we promote Andy King to be manager? I see where you're going. There's a lot of calls for this. For me, he hasn't had the experience at lower level yet. This is his first, 8-9 months in the management, and he hasn't done anything at any level. So I think that's a jump too far at this point. Kate, just say, coming back then to the players. It has got to be the way forward, because we had with the England under-17s, won the World Cup with them. Oh, brilliant! He was going to be the youth. He was going to bring all the youth through. Then he went out and bought Dakova Reed and Ayew. And we've had, Ruud van Nistelrooy bullshitting every other week. Oh, I'm going to put these two players on the bench. He names them, and then one of them.
I use 2 17-year-olds for the price of one.
Maybe in your fantasy, Kate.
Literally, he's 34.
Yeah, exactly. Don't turn into a female Craig. It doesn't suit you, okay? But you put me off now. What was I asking?
Move on.
but those two managers have wasted youth. And something that Craig said to me, and I do listen to what Craig says. We did a programme a while ago, didn't we, about is Seagrave a big white elephant? Because we've not seen anybody come through. And then suddenly this year we've got all these youngsters that have come through. All right, they've all gone out on loan. That's given them experience. But Craig said it takes a couple of seasons for maybe those things to come through, like it takes, a tree quite a few years to sort of grow and get acorns if it's an oak tree. My worry is that if we don't take advantage of these players, we'll lose them, and then we're all back to square one again.
Yes, is that the question?
That is the question.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Ben Nelson, for me, last year, I don't know what you guys thought, but I thought he looked quality last year, to be honest, and I would have seen him. I would have loved to have seen him been given some of the cup games this year, like really start to build on some performances. Because let's face it, I can't think of anybody in that back line who's been able to keep him out, or should have been able to keep him out. That nobody has, and I think if you don't take advantage, then other people can poach them. And that, I know Oxford are loving Ben Nelson at the minute. He scored a great header at the weekend. God, when was the last time we had a regular defender that scored headers? Like, it's a long time ago. So yeah, there is a bit of a snooze you lose about it, and you do feel that could be the case with Alves. Like, a guy I know really well down the footy, he probably watches and goes to watch live about 80% of the under-21s. And his personal opinion was that in the last 30 to 40 years he's been going, the one player, aside from Heskey, who he's got excited about, is Will Alves, not Jeremy Monga. He was like, Will Alves is so consistent. He's heads and shoulders above teams in most matches he plays. And whilst Monga has some magic, and you can say, okay, yeah, he just doesn't do it consistently enough for him to maybe say, yeah, he's probably worth a shout in the senior team. He said, but Alves was absolutely ready last year, and Enzo didn't take the opportunity. Whether that was because they wrapped him in shrink wrap because of his injury, I don't know. But yeah, you've got to try them. I mean, look at Rico is that his name? Nico, isn't it?
Nico Lewis. Yeah.
Like, he's 20 years old. If you don't try them, you're never going to know. And if it's a bit of a sink or swim, and I think people will have listened to Matty Piper before on the radio. He said continually that when you're that young, you can't dampen your enthusiasm and commitment to that team. Like, if you get put in, there's no fear. There's a bit of nervousness, but you don't think, oh my God, I don't want to let the team down, because the existing senior players have already letting themselves down. You could go in there and act like prime Ronaldo for one game, and you've only got to win when you're a youngster going into the team like that. And I'm just not seeing us take any risks, and it's a calculated risk with a youngster coming through, whereas we seem to take risk upon risk by playing the same people and expecting different things to happen. And
it's a dangerous game now as well, because it used to be, right, stay here, don't go to a big club, stay here because you'll get more chance for pitch time. And now you see with Man City, Arsenal as well, with Lewis Skelly and the other guy, the winger. Chelsea have always done it. Man United have thrown Yoro in, 2 or 3 youngsters. They're starting to realise that they can throw youngsters in as well. So that old argument that you're not going to get a chance if you move to one of the bigger clubs is starting to wear a bit thin as well. So we do have to stop
seniors aren't doing it, which ours haven't been for all year. I think you could highlight every single one, including Mads this year, where they've had clangers, howlers, mistakes strewn all over the pitch. How have you not let that become an opening for a youngster?
Yeah.
And I think it was one of the Oxford people said Ben Nelson was too good for Leicester City.
Yeah, I have a feeling there might be an element of sarcasm there, but it's when we had Tielemans, when we was like, oh, he's rubbish, he needs to stay at Leicester. I saw a bloke's post, but I think it was along those lines. But what's the point? And we've said about it. What's the point in Seagrave if we're not going to then transfer these top academy products to the first team? It's pointless. So it needs to be in the team next year.
But that also makes it really Chris. That also makes it really important that the manager choice is the right one to continue playing these lower teams, the younger teams, in exactly the same way, so they can make that transition through. And and this was one of my arguments against Deitch, is the fact that they're all learning to play a certain way, and then you're going to end up with a manager in the first team who wants to play a different way. It's not Deitch, anybody who like that. And I think that's why it's important that you choose on a style of football and you get your manager to fit it rather than the other way around.
Yeah. Before we get to the last question, last thing I want to ask you, Craig, does the manager, whoever it is, whether it's Rude, whether it's somebody else that comes in, do they need to be forward? No bullshitting, just come out and saying, if we are going to go down the Project Youth, and if after 10 games we're only sat in 12, come out and say to the fans, look, do you want to rebuild? This rebuild's not going to happen overnight. You can't suddenly turn into Man United fans where you think, a new manager's going to turn things around instantly. You've got to give us time. Do you need a manager that's going to be like that and be up front with the fans?
I think so, because I think you had it with Maresca. Maresca said a lot of things that the fans didn't really like. It was like, we're playing this way, whether you like it or not. I'm not going to change. This is what we're doing. So, yes, you can not agree with him, but at least there's clarity. And I think that's really important. And it's a lot of what just the fans want, some clarity that there is a plan, behind the scenes, and just share it with us. So at least we can either like it or not like it, but at least we know something's happening.
Yeah. Last question here. This is probably the most controversial. Points deduction, which could lead to no promotion. Is that, I know financially we need to be back up in the Premier League, but look at Leeds now. And I hate to use Leeds as an example, but they didn't get promoted last season, Kate. And this season, they're absolutely, the top of the league. And we lost out to Watford the following season. We smashed everybody that, we went up against. If we come straight back up, financially it would be brilliant, of course. We want to be in the top league, of course we do. But is it the end of the world if we don't come back up, especially if we're having to start to play the youth, and they have 2 seasons down there before the pressure of the Premier League takes over?
Yeah, I don't think 2 seasons would be the end of the world at all. But the issue and the fear is if you don't make it up next year, there's going to be so much trepidation about, being another Norwich or someone like that, like where you're just going to be down there for quite a long time before you can repair the shop to get yourself back up again. So 1 to 2 seasons, I think everybody would prefer that do you go up first time where you're not prepared, or do you go up second time of asking where you are much more robust? I think it's been really sad to see this year, the gulf between the 3 promoted teams. Maybe you can't argue as so much. I still think we had potential. We had so much going on off the pitch. It must have distracted and did distract what's going on it. But with Southampton and Ipswich, Ipswich spent so much money, and it's so sad generally to see that, their first time in the league for God knows how many years, and they've done all they could. They've thrown the kitchen sink a bit and sink at it, and it's still not good enough, and it was nowhere near close good enough. It's just really disappointing. So there needs to be some review, not just of people like Leicester and how much they're spending, but a review of how you can make the league competitive, because you're effectively making the Premier League a closed shop. And it's a really dangerous predicament to present that this is the dreamland, the promised land. One of the playoff finals is one of the most lucrative in football, but you go into this deserted island with only 17 people on it, and you're not welcome, and that's pretty shit from where I'm standing, really.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the argument that you could say is, well, Leicester and Southampton were only 1 season out of the Premier League, so they should have known what was coming and should have, been able to prepare for it.
It shows how hammering and devastating a relegation can be. And one person might argue, well, it serves Leicester right, we overspent, we did this, we did that, but the punishment shouldn't outweigh the crime. It shouldn't make it impossible for you to buy new players because of the mistake that you made. The punishment doesn't fit the crime to me, and it's a continual bash around the head for Leicester to keep us in the position that we're supposed to be in. And
would you agree, stay down a couple of, I'll put 2+ seasons there, rather than come straight back up?
I do to an extent, but my only concern is the longer you're out of the Premier League, the the bigger that gap's going to get. So it's like, at the moment, we've struggled this year, and I think we went up, and as Kate said, everything off the pitch, I think, has been as much of an issue. But what does worry me is if it's the same team staying in the Premier League for 2, and we're in the Championship again for another 2-3 years, that gap's not going to stay the same size. It's going to get bigger and bigger as they're bringing in more money and obviously being able to sign better players, because of, as we've seen, the standard in the Championship and Premier League are two different things.
Craig, on the same point, if we come back up straight away and come straight back down again, what have we really learned? Is that going to be good for us?
It's a difficult one. I sort of agree with Ant, because you can't be out of it too long, because as he said, if the bottom 3 clubs keep just changing, then the others get so far away, because they're just reaping the money in, improving year after year, and it makes it harder for anybody to stay up. So I think you need to go. I think you need to try and get back. And if you end up being a yo-yo club, for a bit, then you are. But at least you're bringing some money in, and you're getting experience. I think you may have a stronger argument when we see how the first half of the season goes and how well Leeds do. I'm not convinced that they're going to be any better than they were last time they went up, to be honest. Burnley have built from the back. They've gone slightly different in terms of Scott Parker has made them very, very solid. And if you're not conceding goals in the Premier League, then you're in the game and you've got a chance of nicking points, and a few draws wouldn't have done us any harm, and we couldn't even get them. So I think you just do the best you can, but from a financial point of view, you need to be in there. Yeah. Because I think the drop-off is like 50% revenue. When we were on TV a lot in the Championship, because we were up there, if you're not even there, if you're on the edge of the playoff positions, you're not on TV much, your revenue really, really plummets.
Yeah, indeed. Guys, we're going to call it a night there. Ant, I've got to say, you are going to be doing some mud wrestling, I believe.
Not quite mud wrestling, but running Tough Mudder for Prostate UK. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. So again, any donations to that is massively, massively appreciated.
And I did that a couple of years ago and completed it, so you have absolutely no excuse whatsoever.
Just piling the pressure on there even more.
If somebody twice your age and can do it, then you've got to be able to do it.
Exactly. And I lost one of my shoes halfway round. It had to be strapped on. It was right. But no, fair play. Good luck.
Thank you.
Are you up for it, Kate?
Sorry?
Are you up for it?
I'm a gym bird. I go to the gym. I don't do mud and stuff. And when are you doing it?
It is. Got the date somewhere. It's either June or July the 5th. So
do stick, and normally you send me the link over and I stick it in the chat. But when we finish the show, go into the YouTube bit and add the link in the chat below.
Brilliant, will do. Thank you.
And that'll be the link.
We also need to do a revisit at some point in the future for Anne's sale of Sean Dyche to us, because I think he missed that show because did you have a car accident or something, Anne?
Girlfriend did, yeah.
Well, so he says. I think maybe he was just sort of saying like, "Oh, I don't think I can defend Sean Dyche."
Was she okay?
Oh, I could defend Sean Dyche till next year. Don't worry about that.
We didn't give him his go, did we? So maybe when we're talking the manager merry-go-round, hopefully at some point.
I won't mind, but I went on to another, excuse me, Blue Tinted Lasses show the night after, having to defend bloody Sean Dyche and who was yours? Craig? Gareth Southgate, yeah, and I was getting absolutely pilloried, and I didn't want either of them.
Quite right.
But, guys, thanks very much. Stick that link in, and don't forget, the links are all below. Thanks very much for coming in. We'll do it all again next week.
Cheers, all.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. I've removed myself. That wasn't the plan. That was the plan. There we go. Here we go. Ant has actually if I can copy this. So if you want to see Ant covered in mud, and let's be honest with you, ladies, why wouldn't you? Here is where you can go and help him. Now, in fact, I've just posted that in the wrong place. Let me just put this here. It's been one of those nights. I think, ladies, that when he's done this, that he should auction off some pictures. Come on, ladies, you'd like that, wouldn't you? Ant covered in mud. You could pretend it's chocolate and you could fulfill your fantasies. Not my fantasy, can I just say that? Look, thanks very much. We're going to be back tomorrow. It's Wednesday at 5 o'clock with the player ratings from the Wolves game. Are we going to get anybody higher than a 3 or 4? Tune in at 5 o'clock with me and Brad. Remember, smash the like, subscribe if you're new, share the video, and if you want to become a member, it's only $1.99. Thanks for joining in. If you're watching on catch-up, add your comments below. And, of course, if you are listening via your podcast platform of choice, thank you very much. I'll see you all later. Good night.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You'd better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network.
TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.